So an important subject in school is history. And as they say, it's important to make sure history does not repeat itself. We actually want history to repeat itself because we want those important lessons not to be disclosed to people in the pyramid, because we're going to use those same tactics over and over again. We also want to cement the idea that children are not part of history, meaning that what they do is not important in terms of the broader perspective. And the way that we do that is we make history boring. And again, the grading system will do that for us. When did World War II start, for example? What are the dates? We can test that. Not what were the events that led up to it. The Treaty of Versailles and the disaster that occurred in the way that we treated Germany, for example. And also remember that history is written by the victors and by the state. And so we want to take out most of the good stuff, the stuff that really makes history have meaning. The struggle that people went through, the complexity. We don't want to focus on that kind of stuff. Another thing we want to do that's very important is we want to portray leaders as demigods. Let me give you an example. Abraham Lincoln, we portray him as a stately man with a booming voice talking on top of his pedestal in the Lincoln Memorial. Nothing could be further from the truth. Abraham Lincoln had a high-pitched, squeaky voice. 7 years ago, our forefathers, that's what the Gettysburg Address would have sounded like. He liked to tell dirty jokes. He was a prankster. He was a storyteller. He told jokes during the cabinet meetings during the war. Mr. Lincoln, how can you tell jokes? Gentlemen, if I don't laugh, I shall cry. He agonized over every decision. He married a wealthy woman for power. She was a shrew and a thief. That was the biggest mismatch in history. He was more worried about getting henpecked than being assassinated. And also, he was the first Republican president and was very likely a bisexual. It's the important stuff that people leave out. And the reason why we leave it out is because we don't want people to see the humanity in a leader. They don't want them to see themselves in that leader. They want to be detached. We want to neuter their leadership potential. I can't be like that. He's a booming guy. He's too serious. We don't want them to see the path of imperfection and struggle, because that would enable them to think they can go on that path. We want them to fear their own power. We want them to hate their own power and to hate their peers' power. We want them to feel grandiose whenever they suggest that we should talk about the broader issues. Why are we here? We want them to be humiliated when they do that. It's up to the orchestrators to sit around and smoke cigars and drink cognac, not anybody else. We don't want them to do that. We want them to shame each other. We want integrity to be a word shrouded in shame. How could you think about integrity? That's not the way the world works. That's striving for greatness. So really what we're doing is we're promoting low energy levels. Again, we can't control specific outcomes, but we can drive those energy levels down. We want everybody to experience shame, fear, and guilt. We want boys to also experience pride. We want leadership based on pride. That creates the pack mentality. These are lifetime behaviors. These are infectious behaviors. The idea is start it very young. It'll be there for the rest of their lives. It'll weaken their resolve to change, to think at a broader perspective. We want that low energy to cloud people's thinking. Remember, we don't really need to do much to make this happen. The teachers have low pay, in part because people don't want to pay their property taxes. They don't connect the two together. Again, it's that dog-sheep mentality. And also, we put executives in place who are really focused on state requirements. And the teachers know that the state requirements don't make any sense. And so there's a natural strife between the administration and the teachers, and all that bad energy flows downhill, and the dog gets kicked, but the child is stuck in the middle. And again, we don't really need to do anything. We just need to push policy. For example, the most effective policy at ensuring this behavior is the No Child Left Behind. And remember, the school system, the public school system, really caters to mediocrity. People exist on a bell curve, and most people are average, and it's just a lot more efficient to focus on people in the middle. And what No Child Left Behind did was to really focus on the people in the middle and to the left of the middle, the people at the very, very low end, to try to bring them up to a graduation level to make the school look good. And of course, the people on the right side, the most advanced students, are the ones who suffer, and that's the kind of behavior that we want. And so we're really trying to eliminate the power of those most intelligent people while looking good in the press. So another important aspect of the educational system is feminization of the educational system. And the idea is that a modern warrior, a modern leader, has to really have a good balance between the masculine and the feminine. And so what we do in the school system is we want to make sure that those strong masculine characteristics are not taught. We want to coddle children, but we don't want to explain to them the dangers of the world out there, the way people really behave, the nature of the pyramid, for example, complex thinking. And again, this is going to happen naturally. As we know, the public school system is dominated by women. And a lot of women hate men and hate masculinity for reasons that completely make sense, because most men are rabid dogs. So this is, again, a self-sustaining system. It's a very, very fine-tuned system. It's ironic how well this stuff works. And so it's politically incorrect for you to criticize the public school systems for not teaching this hardcore masculine knowledge that's so important that any warrior would want to teach their children, certainly their sons. So for our children, the orchestrator's children, we need to inoculate them. The idea of inoculation doesn't exist in school. Again, the feminized environment wants to protect their children in a nice, pristine environment. We want to do exactly the opposite. It's up to the male orchestrator to identify which of their children at an age that varies somewhere between 8 and 12, which one are most likely to be orchestrators. Start early. Remember that most children are really capable of understanding the pyramid. It's just a question of which ones you want to choose. Because people are going to find out anyway. And the idea is we want them to find out on our own terms with our education. So the idea is to educate children about the pyramid and let them test the waters, see how they react, and really try to maintain that masculine-feminine balance. And so what's interesting is most of these young orchestrators that we're training are male. But the ones that are female, the ones that really can understand that pyramid, that strong woman is more powerful than ever. And we're not talking about a woman who becomes a man like many of our leaders do. We're talking about a real woman who understands the masculine. Very powerful. So what we're doing is we're really trying to bring our children into private school. That's grammar and high school. Well, for example, Montessori or Waldorf options are really good to help focus on children's passions. And again, the expense will generally segment us, but we also have ensured that there are no tax deductions for private school, so most citizens can't afford it. And so what we want to do is we want most parents to spend their energy on trying to change the public school system. You're not going to change the public school system. It hasn't changed in 50 years. You really need to focus on alternative education, but let them spend their energy on trying to change something that's really hopeless. Again, that's a distraction. So what we're doing is we're promoting also an obsession with university from the point of view of developing a child, for really developing an orchestrator, an intelligent, passionate leader or child. You really need to focus, if anything, if you could only afford private grammar school or university, send them to a private grammar school. It's much more important. But we have focused people on the university because that's how they get into the pyramid. That's sort of like the cheap way to get into the pyramid. And we've really defocused them on the importance of private school so they're less likely to really scrimp and save to get their children into it.